Hello everybody and welcome to Perek Ches, to chapter 8 of the book of Bereishit as we continue to travel through Tanach. Chapter 8 has 22 verses and it's found in the Koren Sachs Chumash on page 52 and 53. By way of introduction to this chapter, we're going to continue with the story of Noach on the ark. We're going to read about the rains stopping, the ark drifting before resting eventually on Mount Ararat, and the time taken for the waters to subside, and the process with which Noach comes to realize that the earth has finally dried up, sending out a raven, followed by a dove, which returns to the ark, and then 7 days later sending the dove again, but this time it returns with an olive leaf, a sign that the waters have finally subsided. So a year after he and his family embarked on this voyage, God will grant them permission to leave the ark, at which point Noach builds an altar and offers sacrifices. And we read at the end of the chapter about how God promises to never again destroy the earth with a flood on account of the decay in society's actions. So with that in mind, let's turn to chapter 8 together, verse 1. Vayizkor Elohim es Noach. Then Hashem remembered Noach, ves kol hachaya, and all of the wild beasts, ves kol behema, and the animals, asher ito bateva, that were with him in the ark. Vayaver Elohim ruach al haaretz, vayashoku hamayim. And God sent a wind over the earth, and the waters began to subside. Verse 2, Vayisachru mayanos tahom va'arubos hashemayim. The well springs of the deep and heaven's floodgates closed. Vaykalei hageshem min hashemayim. And the heavens' rains were reined in, they were restrained. Verse 3, Vayashuvu hamayim me'al haaretz haloch vashov. The water steadily receded from the earth. Vayachseru hamayim miktzei chamishim u'ma'as yom. And by the end of 150 days, the water had abated. Verse 4, Tanach hateva, the ark came to rest. B'chodesh hashvi'i, in the 7th month, b'shivar asa yom lachodesh, on the 17th day of the 7th month, al harei Ararat, on the mountains of Ararat. Verse 5, V'hamayim hayu haloch v'chasor ad hachodesh ha'asiri. The water then continued to abate until the 10th month. Ba'asiri, in the 10th month, Be'echad lachodesh, on the first day of the 10th month, Niru Roshei HaHarim, the mountaintops became visible. Verse 6, Vayihi miketz arba'im yom, and after 40 days, Vayiftach Noach es chalon hateva asher asa. Noach opened the window he had made in the ark, Vayishalach es ha'orev, and he sent a raven forth. Vayetze yatso vashov ad yavosh es hamayim me'al haaretz. It flew to and fro until the water on the earth had dried. Verse 8, Vayishalach es hayona me'ito. After that he sent a dove, liros hakalu hamayim me'al pnei ha'adamah, to see whether the water had subsided from the face of the land. Verse 9, V'lo matza hayona manoach lechaf raglah. But the dove found no resting place to plant its foot, v'tashav elav el hateva, and so it returned to the ark. Ki mayim al pnei chol haaretz, for water still covered the whole of the land. Vayishlach yado, he reached out his hand, vayikacheha, and brought the dove back to him. Vayave osa elav el hateva, and brought it back into the ark. Verse 10, Vayachel od shivas yamim acherim. Then he waited another 7 daes. Vayosef shalach es hayona min hateva. And again he sent the dove forth from the ark. This time though, verse 11, Vatavo elav hayona le'es erev. The dove came back to him in the evening. V'hinei ale zayis taraf befiha. And in its beak was a freshly picked olive leaf. Vayeda Noach. And Noach knew, ki kalu hamayim me'al haaretz. He knew that the water had subsided from the earth. So, verse 12, Vayiyachel od shivas yamim acherim. So he waited another 7 days, by shalach es hayona, and he sent the dove again, v'lo yasfa shuv elav od, but it did not return. Verse 13, Vayihi ba'achas v'sheish me'os shana. It was on the 601st year, barishon ba'echad lachodesh, the first day of the first month of Noach's 601st year, so it's a year later from when he went in, Chavru hamayim me'al haaretz, the water on the earth had dried up. Vayasa Noach es michsei hateva. Noach removed the cover of the ark. Vayar, and he saw, vehine charvu pnei ha'adama, and saw that the face of the land was dry. Verse 14. Uvachodesh hasheni b'shiva ve'esrim yom lachodesh. By the 27th day of the second month, Yavsha ha'aretz, the earth had dried completely. Verse 15, Vaydaber Elohim el Noach lemor. Then God said to Noah, Say min hateva, go out from the ark, ata ve'ishtacha uvanecha unashei vanecha itach, you and your wife and your sons wives with you. Verse 17, Kol hachaya asher techa, all of the living things with you. Mikol basar, all the animals. Ba'of, all the birds. Uvabahema, and the wild beasts. Uvachol haremes al haaretz haitzei itach. And all of the creatures that crawl upon the earth, they should go out with you. V'shartzu va'aretz, and they shall swarm again. Ufaru v'ravu al haaretz, and they should be fruitful and multiply on the land. What's important to understand here is our rabbis deduce from here that no animals, and in fact, none of the members of Noah's family either, mated during the course of their time on the ark. So no other animals and no other people were born during that time. Vayetze Noach, and Noach came out, uvanav ve'ishto unashei vanav ito, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives came with him. Verse 19, Kol hachaya, every beast, Kol haremes, every creeping thing, v'chol ha'of, and every winged creature, Kol romes al ha'aretz, everything that creeps upon the earth, lemishpacho sehem yatsu min hateva, all emerged, all came out of the ark in their families, in their species. Verse 20, Vayiven Noach mizbeach ladonai. The first thing he does when he comes out of the ark is to build a mizbeach, is to build an altar for Hashem. Vayikach mikol habeimah haTorah, and he took each of the tahor species of animals, all the kosher animals, umikol ha'of ha'tahor, all of the tahor birds, all the kosher pure birds, vayal olos b'mizbeach, and he brought them up as burnt offerings, as sacrifices on the altar. Don't forget that he had taken in 7 pairs of each of the kosher species, and that's where he is bringing these animals from. Verse 21, Vayarach Adonai es reach hanichoach. Hashem smelt the fragrant aroma. Vayomer Adonai el libo, and Hashem said in his heart, Lo'osif lekalel od es ha'adama ba'avur ha'adam. Never again will I curse the land because of man, because of the actions of mankind. Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra minurav. Because the yetzer, the inclination of the heart of a person, ra minurav, is evil from its youth. But lo'osif od lahakos es kol chai kasher asisi. And never again will I destroy all life as I have done. It's important to point out here that the lev ha'adam, the heart of a person, ra min urav, is evil from its youth. That is the observation that Hashem makes post-flood, whereas before the flood, you may recall that the wording used back in chapter 6 was that the people were doing ra kol hayom, that they were only doing evil all the time. So there is a change now, and this is part of the maturing process, that we are going to go through a period of maturity, which typically people go through in their youth, and that is where we start to interact with the world and learn our place and our role in it and how to behave and what to do and what not to do. And we start to get control over our actions and start to understand that we are responsible for our decisions. That is going to be the system in play going forward post the flood. And finally, verse 22, Od kol yemei haaretz, as long as earth and time endure, zera v'katzir v'kor v'chom, the sowing time and the harvest, the cold and the heat, v'kayetz v'chorev, and summer and winter, v'yom v'layla, and day and night, lo yishbosu, will not cease. This is a promise and an assurance from Hashem that the system going forward is going to be one in which we are familiar with, a period of hot and cold, of seasons, of shifts in temperature across the course of the year, different times to harvest, different times to sow. That all becomes the system going forward, which is all a post-flood reality, which makes understanding pre-flood world even more challenging. But by the time we read about the end of the flood, we've got people living with a fixed lifespan of up to 120 years. We've got the seasons as we know it. That makes it a challenge to understand what reality looked like before the flood. but nevertheless it all changes post the flood. And as we go forward into chapter 9, we will read about life after the flood. We will read about Noah rebuilding after the world has been ruined in this way by the flood. We're going to read about the rainbow, the eternal covenant. And finally, we're going to read about his intoxication and his embarrassment by his son. And that's all in chapter 9. I look forward to learning with you then. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.